Okay, good morning, Yidden. We are looking at the Rebbe's Haggadah, the commentary of the Rebbe to the Haggadah, and we're looking at the last couple of comments regarding the proper manner in which to make the blessing over the matzah and the matzah, the two brachas over the matzah. And with that, we will go to the next section of the Gemara. That's the plan for today. So where are we in the commentary? We're on the page that says Pei Hey on the top left. So it's the third or probably maybe the fourth page. Yeah. Which is Pei Hey on the top left, yeah. Back Pei Hey. There we go, that's it. Yeah. And the bottom left, second to last paragraph, Yechav and Lifter, that's what we're holding. So we discussed a couple of things. The primary, the most recent idea that we were just told by the Rebbe is the instruction was to hold all three matzahs. As you make the first bracha, thank you Hashem for bread. We do that because, like every Yom Tif, you have to have lechem mishnah, you have to have two whole loaves. That would be the top one and the bottom one. In addition, on the Seder night, one has to have broken bread. That's the middle matzah. And then the instruction is to let go of the bottom one and make the second bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah. So when he says the bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah, ala chilas matzah, he's holding the top one and the middle one. Top one whole, middle one broken. And as you noted, because there's a dispute, which matzah are you using for your obligation to eat matzah? Are you using the middle one? Or are you using the top one? The primary opinion is you're using the broken one, the middle one. And therefore you put the whole one on top. So that the first bracha, thank you Hashem for bread, goes in the top one. And the second bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah, goes in the second one, the broken. Nonetheless, there's still both opinions, so you hold them both. Now, the question became, this was the last thing that ever addressed, why do we drop the third matzah when we make the bracha? Thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah. It's true that the mitzvah of matzah is only either from the top one, the whole one, or from the second one, the broken one, but it doesn't hurt to hold the third one, especially considering that we're about to learn in a moment, when you make the bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah, you're supposed to have in mind that third matzah which you're about to eat in your sandwich. So why drop it when you're making that bracha? Why let go of it? So the Rebbe gave two answers. Either number one, in order to demonstrate that the mitzvah is primarily on the top two, and that the Rebbe said isn't his favorite answer, his more preferred answer is so that you shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that because you're holding all three matzahs for the bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah, you might make the mistake of thinking that you have to break off one piece from all three. And if we better drop the bottom one. So as you know, I'm only holding these two for the mitzvah of matzah. I only have to take a piece from these two. Yeah, this is where we left off on Friday. So let's look at
also, aren't you supposed to touch the second matzah when you're saying the second?
You're holding all three, then you let go of the bottom one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you let go of the bottom one, you're still holding the top two, including the middle.
Top two.
Yeah. That's what we're discussing.
But if you're holding three, then you're not touching.
Oh, so that's a good question. Oh, good question. So you're making the first bracha and you're holding all three. If I'm not mistaken, the Rebbe's custom was to have like one finger on each matzah. So he's holding up all three like this.
Mm.
So like they're stacked like that.
Right.
So it's a good point because you're only holding. You could be holding all three where you're only touching the bottom one in theory. Right. But yes, but the proper way to do it would be to literally hold all three. Even though the instruction is not explicit here, if my memory served me correctly, that's how the Rebbe would do it, and that's indeed how my father taught me to do it. Good point. Sorry? Yeah, and moreover, again, from my father's instruction, like muscle memory of how my father told me to do it, is when you hold all three, hold it through the cloth. Meaning not with your hand on the actual matzah, but through the cloth. That's how I remember my father told me to do it. I'm sure it's for a reason, but the muscle memory of how I was taught to do it.
Oh, you don't touch the matzah?
Not until I make the bracha. Not until I start eating. Holding the bracha, I'm holding it through the cloth, and then
you drop the third one.
Drop the third one for the second bracha, and then take out the top two to eat. Kazai is from top two. Kazai is from each of the top two. As we'll see. Okay. Yeah.
What about the afikomen, the half of it? Which one are you?
The afikomen is not in your pile now.
Is on your pile?
No, it's not. Your
Finish?
afikomen is not in your pile.
No?
Because you broke off the middle matzah already. You put the afikomen away.
Okay, okay.
So when you're making the bracha, the afikomen is not there.
That's right.
The afikomen is somewhere else.
That's right.
Yeah. But we're going to see in a minute, you have to have in mind. Okay. So let's see. Second to last paragraph. The instruction in Haggadah was on the left-hand side of Pei. So that's going to be over here. It's going to start v'yechavin. Yeah. The instruction is v'yechavin lifter gamkein achilas akricha. Even though you drop the third matzah, when you make the second bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah. The instruction is to have in mind that third matzah that you're going to be eating with your sandwich. Continues the Rebbe. Therefore, nizharin, we are careful, being time in the meantime, misicha, from any talking, shaloi me'in hasuda, that isn't directly related to eating. So let's just follow through with what that said. The order of the events are, after you conclude telling the story of the Haggadah, you drank the second cup, zirachza, washing your hands, motzei matzah, making the two brachas on the matzah and eating, marar, and then kairech, the sandwich. Now we were just told that because when you make the bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah, you are having in mind the sandwich of the matzah of your third, the third matzah, which is the matzah of your sandwich. We were just told because you're having that in mind, you shouldn't speak from your matzah, from your bracha on matzah until you eat the sandwich, which means really from washing your hands until after sandwich, you're not talking. Because from when you wash your hands, you can't talk because you're not allowed to talk, not allowed to interrupt between washing and eating bread.
Mm-hmm.
Once you make the bracha on bread, you're having in mind the third matzah, which is your sandwich, you're not allowed to talk. So you cannot talk from washing till after kairach. And indeed, the Rebbe's custom was he would read all the instructions in the Haggadah, verbalize them. He would literally read, like he's reading Haggadah, he would read out loud the instructions and then do the instructions he just read. So the Rebbe's custom was before rachza, before he washed his hands for the matzah, he would read all the instructions through the kairach in anticipation of the fact that he's not allowed to talk between washing his hands until kairach. Although the prohibition against talking is only against such talking that isn't related directly to the meal, and reading the instructions would be related to the meal, but nonetheless, to avoid unnecessary talking, considering that he could do it before, he would read all the instructions beforehand. And indeed, that's my father's practice at the Seder, is before washing hands, gets everybody's attention and explains to them the order of events from now till after kairach. And this way he doesn't have to speak from washing his hands till after. There are people at the table that we speak. We have no policemen. We don't snap our fingers at people because we remember that love your fellow Jew is a biblical commandment as much as the matzah is. So you don't snap your finger at people who are not following instructions perfectly. But nonetheless, the instructions are all given before washing hands, considering that we shouldn't talk from washing our hands till after we eat the sandwich. So it's a lot of instructions to give. To wash, the two brachas, which matzah to hold, then the marar, dipping charaises, adding wine to the charaises, and then dipping it, and then the sandwich. There's a lot of details to cover, but the instructions are all given before we wash. Okay. Last paragraph from the bottom left. The instruction also was, liftar achilas ha'afikomen. We are also told that while you're making the bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah, you should have in mind that this bracha is also going to extend to your afikomen. Now, when's your afikomen? Your afikomen is way after your meal. If it's hard enough to refrain from talking from when you wash till after your sandwich, which is just the washing matzah maror sandwich, it is definitely difficult to refrain from speaking till your afikomen. That would mean people are eating their meals in silence. That would be quite difficult. So says the Rebbe. This is not an absolute instruction. It's a extra stringency to have in mind the afikomen that comes after the meal. Because really, the afikomen is unrelated to the mitzvah of matzah. The afikomen is related more
Dessert
to the Pesach offering. It's in lieu of the Pesach offering that they would have eaten at the end of their meal. In temple times, we're eating some matzah. So it's an extra stringency, right? He gives a source here. Look it up quickly, 475:18. Where is it? He doesn't explain why. That seems to be the reason why. That seems to be the reason why, because
Reason for what? Sorry.
the reason why it's not an absolute obligation but only a stringency is because the mitzvah of the eating of a fikaiman isn't really related to matzah. It's more in remembrance of the Pesach offering. Whereas the matzahs you're eating now, including the matzah of the sandwich, is directly related to the matzah. Even though, as we learned, the sandwich is for maror, but nonetheless, we also learned the Rebbe's chiddush that they have a second obligation to eat matzah. Okay. V'lachein, therefore, continues the God on the bottom left. Bazeh, in regard to this, the afikoimon, ein nizarim behafsiksicha, we are not so scrupulous to refrain from talking between the eating of the matzah all the way to the afikoimon, which would mean to eat your meal in silence. We are not strict about this, considering that it's only an extra virtue, it's only an extra stringency, and not an absolute obligation. Minhagi beisarav, this is indeed the custom of the Rebbe's house, because the Haggadah mentions that there are those who do have a practice actually not to talk, which means there are those who would eat their entire meal in silence, so as not to interrupt between the eating the bracha of the matzah all the way to l'afikoman. Quite the feat. Okay, next page, page Vav. Okay, there's 4 paragraphs here. We'll read them quickly. So the bracha is al achilas matzah and al achilas marar, meaning to say, the bracha you make is Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are you, God our Lord, King of the universe. Asher kishonu mitzvaysav, who has sanctified us with commandments, v'tzivanu, and you commanded us al achilas matzah, concerning the eating of matzah, rather than le'achol matzah, commanded us to eat matzah. How do you say your bracha on tefillin? Asher kishonu mitzvaysav, lehaniach, to put on tefillin, not al hanachas tefillin, who has commanded us concerning the mitzvah of tefillin. You say they commanded us to put on tefillin. So why don't we say the same thing here? Commanded us to eat matzah, rather than commanded us concerning the mitzvah of matzah. Why al? Explains the Rebbe.
So why don't we say lahaniach when you put on your talis?
We say lehisatif,
Usate.
which means to unwrap. But it's the same thing. But you don't say al atifas talis, concerning the wrapping of talis. You say to wrap in talis, right? The point is the le versus the al. Yeah. So why by matzah don't we say the same thing? Le'achol matzah. Commanded us to eat matzah rather than commanded us concerning the mitzvah of eating matzah. Strange phraseology. It's explained, takes the Rebbe from Rashi's commentary. It says as follows: V'loy le'achol matzah, chulu morar, and we don't make the bracha. Thank you, Hashem, for the mitzvah to eat matzah. Why? Skip the parentheses, which is the source. Motzei gam acherim hashayimim, because in the mitzvah of matzah, as the leader of the Seder, you're making this bracha on behalf of everybody. And when you make the bracha for someone else, you change it from le to al. Example, Megillah. We don't say, thank you, Hashem, for the mitzvah to read the Megillah. We say, thank you for Hashem for the mitzvah concerning the reading of the Megillah. Al Mikra Megillah. Because that bracha is going to be used, because other people are fulfilling the obligation with that bracha. And when I'm talking on behalf of others, I don't say to do something, because that's only concerning me. I say concerning the doing of, because others are going to do it as well. And therefore, here as well, if we were doing a real in-depth learning, I would look up all these sources and try to understand exactly what this principle here, but this is the basic idea that when a bracha is done to fulfill other people, when the bracha is recited and the bracha is intended for others aside for just you, you switch it from le to al. To do something, you switch it to concerning the doing of whatever it is. So here, the reader of the Haggadah is reciting the bracha for everybody else. And therefore it says, Allah chilas matzah. Okay. Sorry?
I was just thinking of the washing the hands. So.
Okay, so another reason for that one there. The reason for that is because the Shulchan Aruch discusses. I can't remember why. Because and then there's a reason. There's a reason there. It's discussed because there's different opinions as to how you say it. I can't remember, but it's discussed why by the Tilsa it's al instead of little yodayim or little yodav. Can't remember. There's machlekes and then there's a reconciliation.
Machlekes based on what we're discussing.
No, based on the Gemara.
What I mean, based on
Yeah.
Oh,
But
whether
not-
it should have been concerning.
Yeah,
whether it
but
should have
yes.
been-
Yeah. Have to look at. I can't remember right now. There's also the question of because you make the bracha after you wash. Oh, that's why. Because you make the bracha after you wash. Because you don't make a bracha before. Usually, you make the bracha before you do the mitzvah. And when you make the bracha before you do the mitzvah, you say to do X. But I've already done it, so I can't say to wash. I've already washed. So you say concerning washing. But you do this nonetheless. You do that so that way it's somewhat before your actual washing. So you rub your hands together after you've done the bracha or while you're making the bracha. But you say al because you've already done the washing. That's the reason.
Lighting too would be that for women.
No, there you say lahad l'knesha Shabbos kodesh, which is why their eyes are closed and they open their eyes. Well, that's also machlek. That's also a whole discussion. Rashi discusses this as well because of that, because you're doing it after. But because your eyes are closed and you're opening, that's a good question too.
So
Yeah, all this is discussed. But yeah, so that's why I have to look up all these sources and figure it out because whenever you make a universal principle, you have to go through the entire universe and make sure it works. But yeah, each of these things have their explanation. Yeah.
when you go to the Kiddush room for the first time, right after the reading of the Torah.
The illegal gathering in the Kiddush room.
Hmm?
You're talking about the illegal gathering in the Kiddush room.
Yeah, the illegal gathering.
Kidding, yeah.
They say shahako. You should say al shahako.
No. That's not for a mitzvah. That's for eating. Al is only, no. That's a brich amendment. And besides, the guy who's drinking is not doing it for the people. He's doing it for himself. Others also. Well, here too, the guy's doing it for himself. Yeah, but no, that's a bracha. Thank you for food. It's not a bracha for a mitzvah. Yeah. Okay.
I limited 100 prayers.
Yeah. Okay, let's conclude. Then next paragraph. The instruction is after you make the bracha, you take kazayis from each of the two matzahs you're holding, which is the top and the middle one, the whole one and the broken one. Why? As we already learned, because the eating of the matzah requires a minimum of an olive-sized portion. And there are those who are of the opinion that the kazayis must be of the top matzah, the whole matzah. And others are of the view that it must be from the second broken matzah, as mentioned above, and therefore you take a kazayis from each one. Then the instruction is to then eat them. We do not dip the matzah in salt. We learned this in the Shulchan Aruch, because it demonstrates how we cherish the mitzvah, and therefore we don't. There should be no other flavor mixed into the mitzvah flavor, and therefore pure flavor of matzah, no salt. And the Rebbe puts the source in the parentheses. And then the Rebbe concludes, and indeed, this is the custom of the Rebbe's house. Now, the Shulchan Aruch actually gave two opinions. One that did dip in salt and one that didn't dip in salt. The Rebbe is giving the reason for the opinion which is not to dip in salt, because we cherish the mitzvah, we don't want to mix other flavors. And then the Rebbe says that this is the custom of the Rebbe's household. In the parentheses, the Rebbe challenges this. It says, this requires some sort of investigation, some sort of, what's the word?
Investigation?
Iyun means like a thought. This requires some further thought and analysis. Sharei Kosav HaShalah, because the Shalah, the famous Shalah, Rabbi Yishai Horowitz writes, Shalpi Kisvei Arizal, based on the Arizal's writing, the Kabbalistic writing, Yitl Memelach, one should dip in salt. So the Rebbe is kind of asking if there's two opinions in the Code of Jewish law, one which says that you should do salt, and one that says no salt. And Kabbalah, for different reasons. And Kabbalah seems to side with the opinion that says you should dip in salt. The question becomes, why would the Rebbes, Chabad Rebbes, who usually are inclined to follow the Kabbalistic readings, take the opinion of halacha which says not to dip in salt? And Rebbe leaves the question unanswered, and Rebbe cites to a certain mimer, which I didn't look up. But perhaps if we look up that mimer, it would give us a better explanation. We can look it up later, yeah. Okay, final paragraph, bottom left. The instruction Haggadah was biyachad, to take the two kazesim, one kazais from the top matzah, one from the bottom matzah, and eat them together. Why? Well, first of all, what does it mean together? Eating them together means literally to put them into your mouth at once. Interestingly, the Rebbe does not speak of swallowing them at once, even though the Shulchan Aruch did speak of that. As you remember, the Shulchan Aruch gave us two top tiers. One is to chew all of them, chew both together, store two kazesim size in your mouth, and then swallow one after the other. And the other opinion was if you can't do that, then the other opinion said then to eat the top one and the bottom one. Never mind. That didn't work. Sorry.
No, we went through that, right?
Yeah.
We went through that because once you eat the size of the one, then you mitigate, you just nullify the.
That's right. You create an interruption. That's what they were about to say. Vatam, the reason why you should put both matzahs into your mouth simultaneously, there should be no interruption between the bracha you made over eating matzah. There should be no interruption between the bracha, thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah, and the eating of the matzah relevant to that bracha. Shahu matzah aleph and matzah beis canal, which is either the top matzah or the bottom matzah. So whichever matzah you eat first, according to the other opinion, you're making an interruption between your bracha, thanking Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah, and the actual eating of the matzah, and therefore put both into your mouth together. With this, we conclude the halachas of how to make the bracha of matzah, all sprung from our Gemara, which described that their bread has to be poor man's bread and therefore broken. And from there we got into, is that in addition to the 2 whole loaves? Is that to replace the 2 whole loaves? And if so, how do you make your brachas? And that's what we went on this whole elaboration. God willing, tomorrow we get back to the Gemara, which is going to be the next part of the Haggadah, which is to fill up your second cup of wine. Right, we're going back to, because this description of eating matzah was really a continuation from Yachatz, from breaking your middle matzah, which came before the recitation of the Haggadah. So the next part of the Haggadah we're up to is the recitation of the Haggadah itself, which begins, of course, with the 4 questions and the answer given to the children. So the next thing is going to be 3 things: filling up the cup of wine before you begin the Haggadah, the 4 questions, and then the answer, the manner in which we answer the question to the children. That's coming up, God willing, tomorrow.
Wow.
A wonderful day, Eden.
It was great.
Yeah.
My grandmother.
Yeah.